Okay, I'd like to call the Longmont Housing Authority Board of Commissioners January 14th, 2026 meeting to order. We'll start with roll call. I'll go first. Chair Hidalgo Faring, and we'll go this way.
Commissioner McCoy.
Commissioner Kalkaufer. Commissioner Popkin.
Commissioner Prieto.
Kendra Daniels, County Supervisor.
Tracy Francesco, Housing and Compliance Manager.
Quincy Williams, Regional Property Manager.
Tim Hall, Assistant City Attorney.
Molly O'Donnell, Housing Director.
Harold Dominguez, Interim Executive Director.
Lauren Sully, Assistant Director.
Erica Morris, Executive Assistant.
Sarah Hardy, Public Safety. Okay. We have staff? No. Okay. So we'll go ahead and move on to agenda revisions and submission of documents. Do we have any agenda revisions? Nope, we're good to go. And then the review and approval of the November 10th, 2025 minutes. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so the motion has been made by Commissioner McCoy, seconded by Commissioner Popkin. Let's go ahead and vote, or unless you have discussion. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, all those opposed? Okay, and then you're abstained, you weren't here?
I wasn't here.
Yeah, okay, so then that would be, that motion pass, does it pass? Well,
It's fine. She's fine.
she's fine with that, okay. I was like, who is the attorney?
I think,
Do I need to abstain?
And then I'm wondering, where do we,
I think, so, Tim,
You don't have to abstain. You can abstain. It makes sense to abstain if you
Okay.
don't feel like you can comment on it.
okay, do we
Generally,
have enough with 3 votes?
Generally, when you abstain, unless the bylaws are written in a very particular way, which at least one of our boards are, generally an abstain counts for quorum, but doesn't count against the majority. So
Okay.
it would be still unanimous.
Okay, so it,
We must be able to approve minutes, like if you have transitions of board members and council, like if it was entirely new people, you would have a minority of returning people, so
Yeah.
legally you must be able to pass.
That is
okay.
yeah.
Okay, so the approval passes 3, 3-0 with Commissioner Prieto and Kalkaufer
Since I wasn't
abstaining.
here, I should abstain, correct?
You don't have
have
You don't
to.
have to, you can
I
vote.
think
Oh,
you can
okay.
opine on the correctness of those minutes.
Yes.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Very good.
So do you approve?
Yes.
Okay, so then we'll do 4-0 with Prieto abstaining. I'm sorry, thank you, Commissioner. Okay, so now on to public invited to be heard. Do we have any members of the public wishing to speak? No? Okay. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to old and new business. Item A, Resolution LHA 2026-01, approve and commitment to a tax exemption partnership with the In-Between for the 1886 Hover Street project. Do you have a presentation on this?
Yep, so I'd like to introduce Tim Racca with the In-Between Online, and Sarah Bott, who's a financial consultant on like-type deals that we have worked with on other deals before, so she's been familiar with our work. I want to give a little bit of an introduction to these property tax exemption partnership policies, and then I'll open it up to Tim or Sarah to give an introduction to the project. We have a policy, which I included in your packet as a refresh, since we haven't looked at this in some time, and then for some it is new. State statute allows housing authorities to extend tax exempt status for affordable housing projects as long as it's income restricted. The tax exemption is for property tax exemption as long as the housing authority is included in the ownership structure. Typically that comes in, especially on something like this, as a 0.01% partner. And then it also extends typically to sales and use tax exemption during construction only. So our policy outlines some criteria that LHA would like to see that really gives more a weighted criteria, I'd say, to help those projects that either serve the lowest incomes or provide community benefits that are in line with things that Longmont as a community would like to see. And so there's always a fee in lieu of paying that sales tax, or, I'm sorry, just tax exemption. And so for Longmont, the policy that we have bases that fee on how high you score basically on those affordability and community benefit areas. So for this one, I'm going to let them give an introduction to the project, and then I'll circle back and talk about what that fee looks like that would be in line with our policy for this one. Tim and Sarah, take it away.
Kim, do you want to talk a little bit about the project, just kind of high level, what it is, the affordability? I think that probably will serve their purposes.
Yeah, that sounds great. I appreciate the opportunity. Thanks, everyone. Good evening. My name is Tim Rockwell. I'm the Executive Director of the Community of Longmont, and we took ownership of the site location 1886 over in July of 2025 and have been now in pursuit of submission for a LIHTC application upcoming in a few weeks, and as such, we are looking for a special limited partnership with LHA for the tax exemption, and I'll let Sarah speak to any other specifics, but this particular project, really is focusing on 60% AMI and below, 83%, if I'm not mistaken, Sarah, are 50% AMI and below, so quite low. There's a set aside for even 20% AMI. And so we're obviously reaching deep into the much needed inventory for low-income housing. And so, we know we've had a good partner in the city in the past on all sorts of projects. And here again, we think this is, is very much in alignment with the city of Longmont and its hopes and mandates to increase inventory. So let me step aside and maybe let Sarah speak to any other specifics, but appreciate it.
I don't think I have much more to add other than, I do work all over the state of Colorado and all the affordable housing projects. And I am a tax credit consultant. It's what I do all day. And every project I work on has this property tax exemption through housing authorities. So these partnerships are very common, and we appreciate, the work that you guys put into it. We understand that it's an effort, but it's also so critical to making these deals work. They simply won't work without property tax exemption, unfortunately. So it's super important. We appreciate you guys hearing us out. This project, I feel like, really does meet what the City of Longmont and Longmont Housing Authority are looking for. There's deep affordability here. The average income across all 40 units is 43% average area median income, which is really low, without any kind of vouchers in the project. So it's really doing a lot of what I think you guys are looking for, and we'd be glad to answer any specific questions.
Okay, do we have any questions? Yes, Commissioner Culpepper.
Are there any additional fees that the person who is acquiring the property would have to pay? Or is the price that you all are going to set all inclusive of all of the amenities or services?
Could you hear that okay?
Yeah, I think so. So this is a great project in the sense that all utilities are included, and no, there are no fees associated with, there's no paying for parking or for, common area, water, some of the kind of things you see in market rate properties. Everything's included in the rent, and the rents are set by CHAPA HUD standards for the area median incomes, and as I said, the bulk of them are at 50 and below, so deeply affordable. I think that's the answer that you're looking for.
Yes, thank you.
Do we have any other questions? Yes,
I have
Commissioner Prieto.
Yes, I have a silly question. Do your units include in-unit washer and dryer hookups?
They do not. There was a conscious decision by the part of the in-between, and I see this with a fair number of my clients, that they are going to do a laundry room. Folks are very split about including washers and dryers in units. I can see both sides. it can be a real maintenance nightmare, but I do understand the benefit to residents. I think the laundry room is very accessible and will have, you know, a sizable number of washers and dryers for folks to use.
So there's in building, just not in unit.
Oh, absolutely, in building.
They're off. The units are, you know, relatively small, and so, you know, that would be a concern of, you know, adequate square footage for 40 units to supply washers and dryer hookups all around. But yeah, there'll certainly be adequate appliances available for washers and dryers on the main floor, accessible.
And what would the cost be, do you know, to do a load?
Oh, that's an excellent question. And
You talking
I
about-
think, sorry, go ahead.
Are you talking
How
about
much
laundry
do you-
load?
sorry?
Yeah, so,
Okay.
so going back to my original question about additional fees, so this kind of wraps into my previous question. Is it going to be affordable to do laundry on the shared laundry area?
I mean, if it's anything like currently, we charge $1.50 for wash and same for dry.
So
for
what
context.
often happens, and Tim, let me know if this is the same way you operate. LHA in the past has worked with, when you lease washers and dryers from a supplier company, so they can do all the maintenance, you have an ongoing contract, and it is typically has coin laundry associated with it. And that kind of works depending on how you write the contract with the leasing company. But Tim,
Right.
let me know if that sounds
Yeah, I mean,
familiar or not.
we do a mix of both. We have a company we work with, and we also service our own. So in this particular project, we probably will be partnering with somebody, and then essentially they set the targets. Although we have some say in that, so we try to keep it affordable.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Commissioner Popkin.
Couple more financial related questions for you. In the resolution here, the fourth clause states, if successful at being awarded the LIHTC credits, the project will provide 100% of units and at or below 60% of the AMI. What's the likelihood of success here for the LIHTC credits? And what happens if they aren't awarded?
You know, if you
Sarah's
all,
all knowing.
if you all say, like, send some positive vibes, you know, during the 3 months after February, you know, I work on at least 2 projects in every single tax credit round. Every round, you know, great projects are rejected, and Chapel will have a meeting with you afterwards and say, your project is great, and we're sad that we couldn't fund it. The competition is fierce. I have no way of knowing what will happen. Tim's very aware, and I've, you know, stressed this. It's a great project, and I am, you know, I think Molly can tell you, I really pour my heart and soul into making these applications as strong as possible. But there's no way of knowing what the outcome will be, unfortunately.
I would
It's
say,
not,
sorry. A couple things the project has going for it is it's the only one in our in Longmont in the 9% round. It's pretty much entitled. So in between purchased this land off of a market rate developer that had it all the way through. So it's as close to shovel ready as it can be.
Okay.
But that being said, I'd say the chance of an award is 100%. It's just how long will it take? But when it comes to what you're approving tonight, what strengthens their application is a letter of commitment, which is what this would provide, to do a tax exemption policy. When the tax credits are awarded, you'll have to do another resolution to actually be added into that ownership structure, and that's when all of the fine-tuned details come out. But really, this is the commitment so that they can tell CHAFA that the Housing Authority is supporting the project.
For perspective, similar request came in 4 years ago? 3 years ago for Atwood?
Atwood, I think, was 3 years ago.
3 years ago, same process. They went through 3 cycles before they got approved.
Yeah, Atwood is my project, Carol, so that is one of the ones that was heartbreaking every year to have those meetings with CHAPA and hear how much they really liked the project, but it took 3 rounds.
And we've had one that took 3, and then we had one that took 1. It's just...
Is there advocacy that LHA commissioners can do to put in a good word for this?
They will often ask, so we provide letters of support.
Yeah.
That helps, certainly. And then they will also ask when they're doing the interview phase, in some sense, what the support looks like in the community. So the applicant will usually summarize that. We haven't typically talked to CHAFA directly in support of projects in advance. We end up talking to them at some point regarding project specifics.
Is there a reason why we don't, or?
Yeah.
Thanks, Sarah.
Great, tell me more.
That's the,
Excellent, Sarah.
It's not in the way, yeah.
They try and they don't really appreciate when folks try and advocate, directly with them. They do, we provide as many sort of letters of support, and they do send out sort of notifications to the housing authority. It's part of the statutory process where they say, this project has applied, and at that point you can send like, yay, we love that project, or no, we hated that project. But no, they really don't appreciate being kind of solicited because it can get very political, and they really try not to have that happen. So we don't kind of encourage folks to do that for us because it doesn't pay off.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Okay, that's super helpful. On the 9%, since you mentioned that, the 9%, that's the federal tax credit equity line item here on page 3, right? That's 9% of what? Because that's certainly 9%, not 9% of the total sources.
Correct. Sarah, do you want to explain how tax credit and equity works?
Is it of the broader project? Is the 9% of the overall project?
No. It's so weedy, and I'm just gonna I've been doing this for 25 years, and I would still. The 9% is. The best way I can explain it is there's 2 kinds of tax credits and that folks will come to you to talk to you about, and one is 9 and one is 4. And don't get hung up on what 9% sort of is, but the way they play out is that 9% deals, there's one round a year, it's a much more lucrative credit. It typically covers about 70% of your total development costs. It just has more value. 4% deals cover about 1/3 of your total development costs with the equity, but they have private activity bonds, which are tax-exempt debt tied to them. And now both sets of tax credits also have state credits tied to them, so we also have that equity in the sort of capital stack. But the 9% just generally means they're typically smaller and much more affordable deals, and they get much more equity. Like, as I say, like the bulk of the deal is covered by this federal tax credit equity. The 4% deals are typically larger, a little bit less affordable because they need to service more debt, and they come along with tax-exempt bonds. Sorry, I know that didn't really answer what the 9% means, but that.
Yeah, we don't need a whole seminar on this. I'm just curious, what's the 9% of?
It's the credit for the bank who's buying.
It's a credit for the investor.
It's the tax write-off.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not the project that they're looking at 9%.
It's not
Right.
9% of the
It's not-
project,
it's
it's relative to the investor in the project.
Yeah.
Got it, thank
It's
you.
the value of the bank who's
Thank
using
you.
after the tax credit.
Got it. Two last questions here. What's the deferred development fee?
So that is typical in almost all of these projects. We do it ourselves as well. So CHAPA has a maximum allowable developer fee that can be taken off these projects. If you need more basically cash up front to get your gap filled, you can defer part of that fee and base it off of future cash flow in order to say we have that source up front. So you can call it a source.
Got it. So it's moving,
paid
basically moving around when you would pay that so that you can get something done up front. Got it. Okay. And then the last question I had was on the partnership fee formula. Where's the partnership fee reflected in the overall project?
It's not there yet. It's not there yet. So this is the team here has this, but our partnership fee on this one was calculated at $19,031. That's in exchange for the 15 years worth of property tax anticipated bill paid of $380,000. So they're qualifying for our lowest fee because of the affordability and support services being provided.
Okay.
Cool. And one last question.
Okay.
When
Yes.
do we think the inventory will be available, and when can people start to apply for the units?
You have a construction timeline if you are awarded.
If you're,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, the idea is that we would close by October of 2026, be complete with construction by October 2027. So in theory, folks, we would start pre-leasing September, August of 2027. You know, this is all sort of assuming everything goes well.
Susie,
pretty
I have
preliminary.
one comment on my comment earlier
Okay,
that I
so
didn't get to
Commissioner
finish.
Prieto, go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, so just regarding the out-of-unit laundry facilities, I work, and you folks will do too, work with populations, vulnerable populations every day who maybe are on fixed incomes. So I just see the challenge that they face, especially if they're on fixed incomes, really low incomes, on even being able to cover those fees. And so as you folks are developing, just to kind of be aware that it's really challenging for families. Now, this is not a larger unit, so I don't anticipate it to be as challenging for the families that are probably moving in here, because it looks like the highest bedroom is 2, if I'm not mistaken. But for some of the the family units with 3 to 4 bedrooms, it is really challenging for parents, and at times just to pay that fee. And so in thinking about future developments or even this development, there is new technology where there is washer and dryers in one kind of unit. And so just being creative, I always think, yes, let's provide affordable, but we also have to bring that quality piece in as well, and thinking about quality of life. So thank you, just some feedback.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, and I hear you.
Okay. Do we have a motion to approve?
I move the motion to approve the resolution LHA-2026-1.
I'll second.
Okay, so the motion to approve was made by Commissioner McCoy, seconded by Commissioner Kolkoffer. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Okay, so that carries for 5-0 with Commissioners Christ and Marcine absent. Okay, it's a handful. Okay, so now we're on to resolution LHA 2026-02. Thank you. The approval of intergovernmental agreement with City of Longmont for the 2026 support and services.
I will be summarizing this item for us.
Okay.
So this is very timely since we have some new commissioners tonight to give a good summary of what LHA and the city, how we operate and how we partner. So we do this IGA every year. We have had changes every year, so we want to make sure that we highlight what those are. But we generally it is business as usual. I would say overall, where it feels like we've taken this partnership in the last 5 years that we've been doing this, is that LHA really does feel like we have stabilized operations. We have a good, healthy development pipeline. We are really looking to 2026 to be that year where we say, we did it. Let's think about what's next. How do we now grow and improve? And so as part of that, before we get into this, something we have talked about is considering if commissioners would like to do a retreat of sorts for LHA, since our 5-year goals that I'll be reporting on next month's meeting, we pretty much have satisfied those. Those were much more of the immediate need for LHA, more like a rescue plan than an ongoing strategy. So just prefacing that with where we think we're heading in 2026. So the major changes that we did here, there wasn't anything incredibly substantive, other than we added a 4th clinician position. This is something that City Council approved in the budget for 2026, so we are reflecting that here. That person is targeted to primarily serve our voucher holders, which is very exciting. That's something we wanted to do for a long time, and that some other housing authorities have been able to do out there in the world. And so that, I feel like, is a major step forward for just providing the best possible services to our residents and voucher holders.
So, real quick for context, where we started seeing the need for clinicians in the overall process actually was very early on when we jumped into this work, and it was frankly connected to when we were trying to stabilize the suites. And I think Councilmember Hidalgo Faring is probably the only one that was in the front end of this, where it was maddening, I think, for all of us to wrap our arms around this. That's why Sarah's here. And what we really started finding, especially in permanent supportive housing, is that the key to be successful in that is actually having the appropriate supportive services in place to support those individuals, because they're primarily, a number of them are coming directly from being unhoused or being in a marginal housing condition, and a lot of times, not in all cases, but in a lot of cases, we're dealing with substance abuse, history of substance abuse, we're just dealing with mental health issues. And what we found is that the housing authority didn't have a robust enough infrastructure to support those individuals, and we were evicting a lot of people because of all of these things that we're talking about. So the board at the time began working with us, and I think Lauren was actually on the board when it was a board when we started doing this, and trying to figure out how we were going to bring clinician services on board to support this area. And we just started looking at multiple funding sources. I think the first one that came online was utilizing the marijuana.
That was one of the early ones, yeah.
One of the early was the marijuana tax, and then the 50% of that marijuana tax was for mental health. The other 50% was for housing. So we used that 50%. We also used some city funds to come in with clinicians. Then the housing authority put funds in so we could add additional clinicians, and then the board, the council, and the last council and board approved using the other 50% that was dedicated to housing to bring the clinician services on. Well, we talk about our experience that we saw at the suites, where it was really driving it. What we also saw was success. And so our calls for service to the police department went down dramatically. Our calls for fire and EMS went down, and so we saw the model really starting to work. We are also seeing through our Housing Choice Voucher Program that there's also a need for this. Tracy and I have been in a number of meetings where people aren't meeting the requirements for the HCV program, up to the point where we have to cancel their vouchers because they're not meeting those requirements. And I think what we often said early on is we need some support services for people in the HCV world. And so this is
not funded elsewhere.
And they're not funded. There's no funding for it. So this is our first run to really start utilizing our clinicians to move outside the boundaries of housing authority properties and support many of the landlords in our community who are taking vouchers and struggling with similar issues. And so this is the next phase of what we've been trying to do.
So I think our entire clinicians model came in because we kept saying, we know this is needed, and nobody out there had any funding sources that were for this type of thing. And there still is no external funding for tenant supportive services like this. So I'm just very proud that Longmont chose to, we'll figure it out because it's worth it, and it has been.
And our epiphany is when you're at 30% AMI in that permanent supportive world, if you do not have these services, the challenges will almost be insurmountable. and you're not doing the best that you can to serve the individuals. And so, excited that we can actually get this done.
Any
Harold, did
question
I
on the
hear you
clinicians?
say that they were living on site?
They don't live on site. They're just clinicians that will go on site. So we have
The office on
the
site.
office on site at the suites, but as we've been expanding, they now operate beyond the suites. They're operating within the overall portfolio, and now this one's going to be outside of the portfolio and operate in the HCV world. And what I failed to say is that group is under Christina. So they also work and interface with senior services and children, youth, and family services. And then as Christina's created the Mental Health Center of Excellence, they also are in active conversations with Lead and Core and Emily. So now holistically as the city organization, all of the mental health services are working directly with each other through the Center of Excellence and connecting, and then that's where it actually starts touching the care net that we talked about. So now they're all real-time communicating with each other on these issues.
Okay. Do we have any other questions? Yes.
So you were saying that 2026 was going to be a transformational year. Can you elaborate what you mean? I always thought that this was a temporary kind of situation, and eventually it would transition back to maybe how it was before. So what were you alluding to or implying?
So
about
I'll
2026?
clarify, and then I'll let Harold jump in if he'd like. We have been, for 5 years, it has taken that long to institute a culture, an employee culture for the organization that is in line with the mission and values, to hire amazing people, expand the team as resources were available. We wouldn't have Lauren's position, we wouldn't have a number of positions. And gain resident trust, gain community trust. So many aspects of that we were working from the absolute ground up to make this a viable organization in the community, as an organization itself, amongst its employees, and financially. So it feels like we have been, it was in the middle of that 5 years, we were making so much progress, but then you have survival moments, and then so much progress. It was like 2 steps forward, 1 step back. It was just moving along. We were moving up, but it was so many challenges. And now we've seen examples of where we can weather the storm. We can have a big disruption, but it doesn't make us divert core services to handle it. We can handle it and keep our core services moving.
Yeah, so I think kind of history on this. So when we first stepped in, we talked about this with the advisory board. They were spending, let's say, $300,000 on 2 positions.
Wow.
That would have been the executive director and the chief financial officer. And on top of that, they only had 1 financial accountant processing, all doing all the financial work. And so you got to start there, because what happened is when we came in, we had more robust city involvement in this. But what we did is we dramatically reduced what the housing authority was paying for executive services, purchasing services, and those things. And then we immediately started putting the money back into where I say where the rubber meets the road. So property managers, maintenance, accountants, because almost every one of their audits had double-digit findings. And a lot of that was because just lack of internal controls with financials and things like that. And so the initial push was really to build those systems up at its base level. When we went through the budget last year, we talked to the group about fund balance, and so I think at best they had $1 million fund balance prior to.
Yeah.
At best. And the reason why that was the case is because the financial model that a lot of housing authorities utilize is development fees, in terms of that brings in revenue coming in as you're building projects. I would never consider that ongoing funding because it's based on projects. And when you look at the ongoing funding that comes in through the through managing, through administrative fees, management fees, and that type of stuff, when you look at it based on what you're generating in revenue, you'll never be financially solvent, because the rent, each property is its own fund, essentially, and the margins are really narrow in those funds. And so one of the things that we came to the conclusion of recently is you almost have to have a mixed income project where it's affordable, income restricted, attainable, and some market rate in it to actually drive revenues in for the ongoing funding piece of this. I can tell you today that we're in a better position financially. So we've been working on, one of the things we had to create was a 10-year look at the fund balance, and then set a threshold of we don't want to drop below, $2.5 million, $2.25 million.
Yeah.
And then as part of that, what we were able to do is to, as we're building up fund balance, created a restricted fund balance that gives us even more security.
Like a CD or something?
No, it's just we invest in it, but it's a separate portion of the fund balance that is restricted for 90 days operating expenses, right?
Yeah.
90 days operating expenses. So now we have the fund balance close to where we want it, and we have a restricted piece of the fund balance, which gives us more financial security. And I'm going to give you a big but. We also know we need another project to go in 2028-ish, and we need another one in 2030-ish, because if we don't have that project and we're not bringing in those development fees, then we're kind of recreating history. And where I'm pretty keen on is the mixed income project, because from an ongoing revenue perspective, you need to start driving ongoing revenues to match your ongoing operating expenses. And so as we think about what are the next steps, that's part of it. Now, you start pulling apart, now all of a sudden we're talking about adding probably a value of an additional at least $500,000 of expense. So when you take all of these pieces, I think what we're saying is right now, we've got more work to do to really get the financials where we need to. And how do you not lose the economy of scale? Because there's a lot of economy of scale that's coming in that in this relationship, there are things that we can do because it's intertwined that if you pull apart, then we start creating issues in terms of how's this piece paying for this piece in other areas, which then starts adding more expense. And I think that's kind of the work we got to start talking about in terms of where are we heading and what works and what is ultimately going to be financially the most sustainable approach. Because oddly enough, I think Greeley's now moving in this direction. Is that correct?
Yeah,
There's a lot of places now dealing with the same issue. And I think those are the things we're trying to work out. But financially, we still have a lot of work to do.
Yeah, we're not there yet. So thank you for that question, because Councilmember Marcin, or Commissioner Marcin, had asked.
Yeah, I talked to him
okay, good,
about it, yeah.
good. I was going to say, mention that to him. Because, all I just think about is those early days of trauma. So, and I wasn't even in the weeds. You guys were doing all that. And I was like, oh my God.
I would say the trauma is not healed all the way.
No. There's triggering moments. Yes, yeah.
No, I mean,
suffer from PTSD.
Yeah.
I mean, Lauren and I were in a meeting today. And this, actually, when we were saying we're better, I leaned over until this morning. We're going to have another conversation with you, probably in executive session, about some issues that we're encountering that are significant. And I think that's part of the challenge in this, is that it just seems like there's always something.
Yeah.
I mean, I look at Lauren and Molly's like there's always something.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the thing that we have to be mindful of too is making sure that we're building enough staff so that, you know, my life's gotten easier because of these folks. That doesn't mean their lives are easier because then if somebody has to take vacation or somebody's out for a baby.
Yeah.
It has to take vacation like a chore. It takes the vacation they're
But
allowed.
if you take vacation or somebody's out with somebody's out with a new addition to their family, see, congratulations.
Congratulations.
What you start seeing is everybody has to start dropping down a level because you don't necessarily have the capacity to where you have that built-in
Redundancy.
So then Lauren has to move down and get in the weeds on operational issues. And then you start finding all of us sliding. It's not a bad thing. We can handle it now, but without all of this overlap, I mean, there's been moments for this team where I think we've all gotten close to hitting breaking points. And so as we're thinking about this, I think we have to be very mindful of the people and what they deal with, because Sarah and I have talked about this. The work that they're doing and the issues they deal with is as close to anything in this organization that to police and fire, and in many cases it's exactly the same. They just don't have badges, but they're dealing with the same issues. They're seeing the same trauma that they're dealing with. And we have to be very mindful on all of this for all of our staff, because they see suicides. They see deaths that you don't find for days. They see the behaviors that you would normally associate police dealing with. People running around the facilities without their clothes on. Stealing each other's packages. Yelling and screaming at them. People fighting with each other. And so we have to be very clear and we have to be very sure that as we're making adjustments that the system is supported in the way that we need to support the staff, because we're just now stabilizing. And there's days when they're briefing me, I'm like, how are you hanging on? And so for me, those are all the things we have to be very mindful of.
Yeah, and I mean, if we let go too soon, then it unravels all this work that's been put into this. And you know, our goal was really creating this sustainable, long-lasting, successful housing authority, not really just to kind of get it on track and then pass it along. So, you know, just that time frame. I think we were intentional. We never set it was like we're going to have it this long, and then fly birdie fly.
To the point, and then understand what the world is.
Yeah.
And the world keeps changing.
And the world keeps changing, and then new priorities, new direction.
I was going to ask, just piggybacking on that for a moment, how does to what extent does the volatility at HUD, or potential volatility at HUD, like impact the risks to the housing authority and kind of the sustainability long term of what we're counting on or what we were planning for?
Primary risk is in Tracy's area in the Housing Choice Voucher Program. We're fortunate that outside of the Lodge and Hearthstone, which are a 202 property, all of ours are tax credit, and we're working them at the local level. But the volatility and the threat is really in the Housing Choice Voucher Program.
So there's that other potential cliff there, depending on how things evolve in the federal, to be mindful of. That's if we were to think about any other kind of structural change, we'll keep in mind the other risks that are outside of our control fully. Cool. I have another question, but
well, you know what? Let's go.
Okay.
Yeah, because that way I'm not having to
1.5 questions.
Yeah, go for it.
I see a lot of in the IGA. I see a lot of kind of like crossover service sharing. It makes sense. What I don't see there is anything between LPC and the housing authority here, and just piggybacking off of Commissioner Kalkofer and Commissioner Prieto, in the previous discussion, we were thinking about quality of life and affordability as it relates to just kind of ongoing operational costs. In this case, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think LHA actually pays the utility bills in all
They
these
do
situations.
for the senior properties.
And PSH.
Yes.
So not for all of them.
Not for all of them.
And I know we'll talk about utilities soon, but I think it might be relevant for the IGA. I'm just like, out of curiosity, have we thought about, here's the 1.5 questions. Have we thought about like what LPC's role could be in supporting either efficiency or upgrades to support like bill reductions both for tenants and for the city, or sorry, for the housing authority? And then, or have we thought about whether there's a broader, or what kind of work have we done on ESCO's energy saving contracts?
So we absolutely partner with LPC. It's not really part of this staff sharing, the more administrative side of things. But for example, on Ascent, our new building, LPC did a demonstration project to put solar on panels on the top. They own the solar panels. They're leasing the roof space, and the residents are going to get the direct benefit of the cost savings on their utility bill. On Village on Main, when we did that big rehab, about like over a year ago now, we worked with LPC because the LHA does pay that bill on behalf of the residents. So we worked with them to master meter, do a solar system. We worked together to get the solar tax credit the first year that it was ever out to stack on top of our housing tax credit. And that bill is benefiting LHA's bottom line, which means LHA has more money to do things like resident services. So we are doing it on project
It just doesn't
level
need
stuff.
to be a direct.
Yeah, this is
They're
all.
a different entity.
Yeah.
Oh, that's true.
LPC is a separate entity of the city.
Well, it's a separate fund.
Yeah.
Separate fund,
Yeah.
but so are a lot of these.
Yeah.
So it's important to remember that this is not the only IGA between the city and LHA, and sometimes we have one-off
Multiple,
projects
yes,
and
yes,
things,
right, yeah.
and things. So we're not always coming back to this one, but it is the
So our enterprise funds typically show themselves in the specific project in the buildings.
Okay.
And so where you see that will be in the IGAs related to the projects. And then on top of that, when we talk about fee waivers that are coming into those projects, that's where you see the enterprise funds starting to play in that world.
So just one follow-up on that, which is, if you do it on a per project basis, you're looking more at the capital fund, like the capital costs of the project, right? If you do it as we're looking at for kind of ongoing utilities, it's more on the OpEx, the operational side, right? So
the solar hit the OpEx. in
okay,
terms
so
of
that's
the
where it gets
electric
credited
rates.
there?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, and then when we think about other kind of like energy efficiency upgrades and water efficiency upgrades, that's all hitting the OpEx side too?
Yeah, and that's when you typically try to attack those is when you go through a re-syndication, like we did at Village on. Village on Main's actually a really good example. They were coming in on a re-syndication, and at that re-syndication, then they started talking to LPC and others as you're doing the overall rehab, then you're bringing these other components in.
To do energy efficiency upgrades, creative things where we can, like the solar.
We did some upgrades at Briarwood.
Yeah, we've worked with LPC a lot on, we're trying to get everything upgraded that we can, and then you're going to see something later on that's through Boulder County, but we are definitely working in the energy efficiency upgrade.
Great, and that's not just about efficiency and cost savings, it's about health and safety as well.
Right.
Oh, absolutely.
Cool. Thank you.
Commissioner Prieto.
Just a question, if you don't have the answer right now, that's okay. Do we know what's the population, like, what are the numbers of the populations we serve? Is it predominantly families with children? Is it
Different
single
demographics,
adults?
Yeah, so here was the other issue. So historically, who's that?
Just people talking.
League of Women's
Oh, okay.
Meeting from the.
Oh, okay.
So historically, and this actually predates, I think, even when Laura was on the board, the philosophy of the Housing Authority was to primarily focus on building age-restricted units. So everything, with the exception of Aspen Meadow Neighborhood and Briarwood, was an age-restricted property in the portfolio. So think 55 and over, 60 and over. I don't know why that was a decision. That was a decision. And so Aspen, or Ascent, was sort of in that transition period where we know from our data that we actually need more affordable housing for families. And so Ascent was really the first true development project that wasn't age restricted. And honestly, that's kind of what we have to continue developing, because we're also seeing some financial issues with our age restricted units in terms of that 60% AMI range and people being able to afford it. But that was that's sort of the lingering effect of just operating capital decisions that are made, is it never had that inventory.
Thank you.
Okay. So do we have a motion to approve the resolution and authorize the board chair to sign the IGA?
So moved.
Okay, can I have a second?
Second.
Okay, so the motion has been made by Commissioner Prieto, or Commissioner Popkin, seconded by Commissioner Prieto. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Okay, so that carries 5-0 with Commissioners Chris and Marcine absent. And now we're on to the resolution LHA 2026-03, approve the 2026 utility allowance schedule.
That is me.
Okay.
So let me give you a little bit of background on the utility allowance schedule. This is for the Housing Choice Voucher Program. When we give a person or household a voucher, we give them a voucher according to the family size or the bedroom size that they qualify for. And that gives us the ability to figure out what their payment standard is. And so that's how much that they can spend under this program. Now, if they end up paying for utilities, that's another cost. So we do a utility allowance, and whatever that utility allowance, depending on the bedroom size, the type of the unit, what utilities they pay, is deducted from that maximum, and that sum, or the total, becomes their maximum. If their income is so low that they don't pay any rent, then they get that amount in a check sent to them. So that's to assist them with their utilities. So with that said, HUD says that we need to look at the utility allowance every year. And if it raises over per like electricity, garbage, gas, if each utility raises over 10%, then you need to do another survey. In the last, I would say 4 years, we've been doing a survey every year, because Boulder Housing Partners and Boulder Housing Authority, Boulder County Housing Authority, does their survey. They hire a consultant and they do their survey. And so we just kind of piggyback on that, because we serve all of Boulder County. So they have changed. They've got a program under their voucher program that's called Moving to Work. Under that program, they got a waiver on how the utility allowance is figured. It's much lower than what we used to give them. So this year, we're just going to keep it. We're asking that we keep it the same of last year. None of the electricity didn't go up 10%. Garbage and trash didn't. Excel didn't go up over 10%, and the water rates didn't go up over 10%. Next year, we'll have to do hire a consultant and do another utility survey. We won't be able to piggyback on Boulder Housing Partners and Boulder County Housing Authority because of the way that they give their utility allowance now.
And what's the funding source for the utility allowance?
It comes through the voucher program, the half payments.
Yeah. And what's that revenue stream? I'm getting to, so HCV, they give you X number, they say, oh, you have X number of vouchers, and then they say you have X amount of money.
Yeah, so they give us a contract and they say you can help up to 518 people, but this is how much you get. We've never been able to assist 518 people. We've gotten up to 400 and some.
Over 400 right now.
With 400. With the PDDs that are sent.
No, because that happens in January.
So we'll be at 418. So we're usually at the low 400s because of our income. So if the utility allowance goes up, the amount that they can spend, of course, goes down. If they have to pay for utilities, and the half payment that we pay out is higher.
So the punchline into this is, if the Fed, this gets to the question that Commissioner Pockman was raising.
Mm-hmm.
You go through these processes, but if they don't give you more money, all that means is you're reducing the number of people that you can help.
Yeah.
Because the true cap on all of this is how much money HUD gives you. Not what they say you can do, but how much money they give you, because then on top of that, when you have rent adjustments that come in through their system, if they don't raise your budget and you're paying more for rent, then you have to reduce the number of people that you can help, which for the two of you, last year we were in shortfall, meaning because they didn't give us more money and the market was taking how much we would pay for rent up and all of these other pieces, we actually had to implement a plan to bring that down. And so what that meant for us is people were giving up vouchers. We were not re-vouchering because we had to eat down on the shortfall that we were in. And if the shortfall is significant enough, step 7 in that process was we had to kick people out of the voucher program. Completely. And that's HUD driven. That's HUD driven.
So you couldn't even like raise their rent a little bit to make up the difference?
And it's more prescriptive than that. It's more prescriptive. They even get so prescriptive as the people that you get off of the program are the ones that have been on the program the longest, as long as they're not seniors, disabled, or have kids.
Or have kids under their
certain age. So it's kind of reverse. It's not the most recent that loses their voucher. It's the one that's had the voucher the longest. And that's a very prescriptive process.
And that's happening now?
No,
not anymore.
We're not in
We avoided shortfall.
We avoided there was a time we thought we were going to have to do it. But what it meant was, if 20 people gave up their vouchers, we just didn't issue another voucher.
So if, like, say if I'm a voucher holder and I give up my voucher today, you guys would reissue that to someone else?
Not now.
No.
So it's still in effect?
We're still in shortfall.
Okay.
Well, and we have 18, we've got 18 project-based vouchers going into a sense, so those are coming up.
That'll help make up.
They've sent out letters saying, don't be vouchering up at 2026, because we are not even going to guarantee that shortfall funding will be available in 2026.
And there's other things that we were looking at.
Oh, yes.
Because the amount of money that they're allowed to spend is based on bedroom size.
Yeah.
And the way that we figure out bedroom size can be tightened up to where somebody that qualifies for a 2-bedroom, let's say a single mom and a single or a child, a female child. Right now, we give them a 2-bedroom.
Oh, 2-bedroom.
We can give them a 1-bedroom.
Okay.
We can also give.
Which, just to clarify, that means rent equivalent to a fair market rent of a 1-bedroom.
Yeah.
They can choose a 2-bedroom apartment or whatever, but that's what they can qualify for assistance.
They'll just have to pay more. It's a pretty regimented process.
So you were
that's the
asking
exposure.
about changes in HUD and how that affected us. The shortfall process was one of them, because how many people did we go through while we were talking through shortfall? How many HUD reps?
Oh,
Four.
Four.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were all
Talk to
being laid
somebody,
off.
they would start working toward the
Bought out.
shortfall happens all the time. And they have funds that they put towards shortfall for various housing authorities, and oftentimes some housing authorities would use that as a tool to get more total funding. But you have to go through processes, and each time we would go through a process and then get a new HUD rep and start over again.
And you have to truly start over in terms of the information, the context, the knowledge that they have.
Maybe moving difference.
Government
Savings.
efficiency, right?
Do we have any other questions? Yes, go ahead, Commissioner.
So what concerns me is people with fixed income, their costs are going up. Are these proposed increases on the service fees or the usage? Where's the increase?
We're not proposing an increase.
Okay.
Are you
Using
Yeah, we're not.
This is just the percents.
That's the utility percent.
Right.
That's utility, that's just
Okay.
a general rate increase.
Okay.
If we did an increase, then the voucher amount that we would send out would increase to cover those increased costs.
Right.
Got it.
We are not.
These are all
doing an
Longmont or
increase.
Excel utilities, more broadly, the properties.
Got it.
Yeah, HUD
So
says that if
those
there's-
are your increases.
Right.
Got it.
Okay.
You know I have questions on this.
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
I got 4.
Wait, 4, are you serious?
Yeah, I have 4 questions.
Make them short.
I'll go as efficiently as I can. First question: when we say electric, about the reference line here, when I'm looking at the example for multifamily housing on whatever the green page.
Yeah.
Light green page. Or the color of Councilman Crypto's sweater. The electric average one, that third line versus the electric heat pump. The electric average is referring to electric resistance heating, I presume. Is that the?
Like electric baseboard versus a heat pump.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and so then my second question here is, I presume the cost difference there is then a function of the efficiency of the type of fuel use, or in this case, the heating technology, yeah?
Yeah, the consultants go and they review, it's about this thick, but they review different types of units and the efficiency, and then they come up with an average cost across the board for 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom, 4 bedroom. For the cost of electricity or the cost of gas to heat. And then they break it down to then they add the, I think it's the electric fee to that. There's a straight electric fee.
The flat charged
Yeah.
one, yeah.
Yeah. So what we do is we go through and we look at the unit and what kind of utilities they have, and then determine what allowance that they qualify for.
Okay, noted. I know we'll get there later in the meeting, but it's great to see more cold climate heat pumps coming in, because it looks like those are, on average, operationally more cost effective for us too. Why is there a difference between if I look at the olive green page versus like the purple or blue page, I'm looking at an increased cost relative, like between electric and gas. So gas is more expensive operationally for the olive green multifamily units versus the duplex units where gas is slightly cheaper on average per unit. Is that an efficiency of the overall unit? Is that a different technology maturity? Like,
You know, I can send you the study that they do, if you'd like to see
I would
it,
love to.
and see how they come up with those figures. But they specifically look at duplexes, and then they specifically look at multifamily, and then they specifically look at single family.
I would love to see that. I won't take up more time in the meeting on
And
this.
then, really quick, just a recommendation is to ask these questions on email ahead of time, because then she could have had something prepared, or you guys could have just answered it offline. So.
Yeah, I won't take up more time on that.
Yeah.
I'd be very, it's curious that it changes.
I'll send you
in
the
inverse
report.
there, yeah, thank you.
And you can have at it, because
Thanks.
then you could give me a debrief.
Same question, I'll take a look. We can talk offline on the water heating. I'm seeing like the inverse there, again, same fuel type, inverse relationship of cost, so I'm just curious on that.
It might have to do with the fact that it's high-density family housing versus 2 units. You're going to see some efficiency with density.
That would probably make sense, though I would have expected the same relationship to exist on gas and electric for water heating in the same type of unit as well. So anyway, we can dig into the details on that.
I just think what I would say too is when we say HUD, formulaic, specific, I think there's a lot of things that we see in their processes that we're all scratching our heads in the same way going, this doesn't make sense, but it's the way that they structured the process.
What you're saying is I might not be crazy.
No.
Right.
Okay.
No.
And we may not have very technical answers for you.
Yeah, that's fine.
I mean, the
My
report
last,
is very
my last
thick.
question here, and maybe this is just the HUD formula for this, but when I look at the electric charge, the $12 flat across every single unit here, is that an LPC electric charge assumption, or is that another part of the HUD formula? Because what I'm seeing is a regressive, somewhat regressive impact based on size and type of unit here.
So it's not, they're just not looking at LPC, they're looking at all of the utilities in Boulder County. So it's an average, they take an average in Boulder County.
So our housing properties under our utility are subject to an average for the region that aren't contextualized by the costs that we have control over.
Not anymore.
Well, that's disappointing.
Yeah, because.
And it's really about setting that allowance that goes into the voucher. So it's not necessarily
What we're paying.
right.
Yeah.
Okay. So is it actually better that it's high? Like, would it be better if it's higher
Better
from an
for the
allowance
tenant.
For
standpoint?
the tenant,
Yeah, for the
because
tenant.
then they get
Well,
more funding in their voucher.
I-
and they can buy that.
I don't know, I mean, the amount that they're allowed, you deduct the utility allowance, so the amount that they can spend is lower. If the utility allowance goes higher, the amount that they can spend is lower. So if you add the utility allowance to the rent that the landlord is charging, it can't go above the fair market rent for like a two-bedroom. So, I mean, it works
Yeah.
out.
So
for
the real
the
question I
tenant.
should have asked is, do we have control over these rates? And the answer is no.
No.
Got it, okay.
Okay.
I could have just asked that at the beginning.
You know what, what am I doing? What am I doing?
Can I have a motion to approve resolution?
I have a
Okay.
question.
Do you have one more? Yes, go ahead.
And I would have asked it, but we didn't have this conversation prior, and so it didn't
Okay,
generate
yeah,
in
no,
my
go
head.
ahead.
Given that we serve a population under a certain area of median income and income threshold, a lot of these folks, you know, if they were just living in a regular property, would qualify for credit or like
Here.
discounts through like Xcel Energy
Rebates, yeah.
just by being a qualified lead applicant. Does the city of Longmont, you guys do work with Xcel and they do provide a discounted rate for our properties since we're serving? Does that make sense?
So we don't actually have much gas. So all the power would be through LBC.
Okay.
Yeah.
We don't have much. The only thing it is in some properties is gas boiler systems, but we have electric heat in each unit that's separate. So we do not work with Xcel to get a specific lowered rate based on. I think there's some nuance here because if it's for the master boiler system, it's LHA is the account holder. There's some things there that we would have to sort through.
Yes, if it's a tenant that pays the utility bills, and when Becky talked about CARES, that's the work that we're doing to connect it because it's the tenant that has the relationship with Xcel. When you're the landlord, then there's different requirements that you have. So we typically don't qualify for things.
Okay, I was just curious
Yeah.
because I'm like thinking about opening up
Right.
funding streams and revenue
Yeah.
for LHA, and given that they already provide discounts to those types of families, I don't see how we couldn't work an agreement to say that percentage discount maybe could be applied to X amount of units.
Yeah.
Okay. Can I have a motion to approve LHA 2026-3?
So moved.
Okay, and so that was moved by Commissioner McCoy, seconded by Commissioner Kolkoffer. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, so it carries 5-0 with Commissioners Christ and Marcine absent.
So can I just ask a process question here? What would happen if we didn't approve the utility allowance schedule?
Then,
So it's not entirely clear that this one had to go to you for the, because we are only required to do a new study and set a new utility rate schedule when we have a greater than 10% increase in any one category. I think it's a better process to have approved the utility allowance schedule every year. you would probably have to bring back utility allowance schedule ASAP if you had not approved this.
Well, like, basically this like comes down from HUD, and we just have
We are required to
Yeah.
set a utility allowance schedule.
It doesn't have to be like we could change what the exact allowances were.
You'd have to have
But we have to-
documents, you'd have to have
Right.
data to support
But
it.
it was over the
Well, I look forward to seeing the report.
Okay, so now we're on to the resolution LHA 2026-04, approve an intergovernmental agreement with Boulder County for sustainability improvements at the Suites Supportive Housing. So do we have a presentation on it?
Yes, I'll speak to this one.
Uh-huh.
So some of you might remember in the past where we talked about some energy upgrades being funded through Boulder County's Office of Sustainability, Climate Action and Resilience, what we refer to as OSCAR. We were working with Energy Outreach Colorado originally to fund a project, and how this kind of came about was they had been giving money, they decided they were going to award money to BCHA, and so they said, since we're doing this and we're doing a direct allocation to BCHA, we're also going to do a direct allocation to LHA, and so they said, we're going to do $200,000, give us your project of choice, and this was for 2025. What we decided to use that money for was to replace 22 aging heating and cooling units at the Suites. And so, in case you're not familiar, the Suites was a extended stay hotel originally, converted to permanent supportive housing. And so there are all of these individual units on the roof, and they are at the end of their useful life. And we did have some emergency replacements going into winter to make sure people had heat and weren't having to use space heaters. Thankfully, they're all functioning right now. This agreement just covers the transfer of the $200,000 grant funds to LHA from the county. We're not working with Energy Outreach Colorado anymore. They decided it would just be cleaner and easier to just give us the funds than we manage the funds.
Okay.
So this covers just the transfer of funds to LHA, and then LHA is going through a procurement process to identify the contractor that we will work with to replace these 22 units over the next year, within 2026. We have
Okay.
until the end of 2026 to complete it. You'll see something else coming sometime soon. We haven't heard the amount for 2026 funding yet. We have kind of already identified a project for that funding, potentially. So once we know what that amount is, we'll start, trying to get together an idea if the project we want to work on in 2026, which is Spring Creek upgrades to their, what is it called? A swamp cooler.
Swamp cooler.
The swamp cooler
Oh,
on that building, which is not the most efficient piece of equipment. So
Flooded
there's,
the building a couple of times.
yeah, it's flooded the building.
Oh, geez.
We get complaints about the temperature shifts and swings and the moisture. So that one would involve some engineering costs. So it will depend on what the funding amount is.
Okay.
So this is just the IGA to cover the transfer of funds. Then we will bring back more information about awarding the project.
Okay, so we're not done with this conversation yet. Okay, do we have any questions? Yes.
Just one. Are we able to leverage the Colorado heat pump tax credits in some way, shape, or form as well on top of this? I know like elective pay wouldn't necessarily apply here, but is there a way to basically do like a capture, use a third party to capture that? So that
If
would
we're not
allow-
doing the entire systems, if we're just doing select systems,
I don't know how that would play. I'm not positive.
I'm not positive because
So that would allow us to do more, to make the funds go further if we were able to capture the tax credit too.
yeah, I mean, I think if the contractor can utilize the tax credits, then that may be the cleanest way to do it. But we'd have to work with the contract, but heating, cooling company X, if they can monetize the tax credits, that's probably the cleanest way to do it, because then behind this, you also have the investor that's in the other tax credit piece that I think that's more complicated.
The other investor being
That's
The-
what you see.
well, no,
The
this
tax
isn't
credit
touching the
investor at
project.
LA.
This money's flowing directly to LHA.
No, I'm just saying,
Right.
the utilization of
Oh,
tax
tax
credits, when you have an entity that's getting tax credits from, they're the financing arm of the project, and so it almost have to be that the heating and cooling contractor, kind of like what car companies do with the tax,
For the leases.
tax credits for
Down.
leases.
Uh-huh.
I mean, we would have to explore that with them and see if there's a
So,
way to monetize it.
Energy Outreach Colorado was our primary consultant on this. It's really, they're helping Boulder County with this program, and they were willing to help us figure it out. They did not propose this as an option, so I have some confidence that we would have heard about that as an option, but if it was feasible.
And I feel like tax credits would be harder than a rebate, right? Because you can't really fold new tax credits into an existing.
Well, and the suites is not taxed. It's not, it
Yeah.
is not taxed at any because
Right.
of the LHA.
That's what I'm saying, it almost has to be the contractor that can figure out a way to, like.
Okay.
And they're not gonna be charging any, like, taxes or anything, but they, like, if it was just a straight rebate, cash rebate, then we could turn around and use that rebate to offset additional units potentially.
That would be the objective, if possible. There, maybe it's worth just exploring briefly before we settle that. Just the Colorado Energy Office there does list a whole list of registered contractors with their office, and it does say all Colorado residents, businesses, and other organizations who install an eligible heat pump through a registered contractor may receive a portion of the tax credit. So it could be worth looking into to see if we can stretch those dollars.
Yeah, when we identify the vendors, we can ask them about their experience with that.
Yeah, our props were tax exempt.
Right. But there are intriguing ways now
Yeah.
to allow that. So I'd be curious to see, or maybe it's a pay for if we don't own the infrastructure up front and we pay it over time, like we pay as like pay
At
for
least- at least
something
so.
like that. I don't know. Worth looking at that if that would allow us to do 10 more units or something like that.
Okay.
Cool. Thank you.
Okay.
Otherwise, nice job.
Any other questions? Do you have questions?
I'll ask
Yeah,
Harold
go.
after.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so can I have a motion to approve resolution 2026-04?
Gladly moved.
Okay, second?
Second.
Okay, and so the motion was made by Commissioner Popkin, seconded by Commissioner Prieto. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Okay, so that carries 5-0 with Commissioners Marcine and Christ absent. Now we're on to the budget modification request for revised 2026 para-employer contribution and snow removal revenue.
So in October, the board approved Longmont Housing Authority's budget. What we found in December is para is increasing our employer rate. We were at 14.86, and they are increasing it to 15.81 in 2026, which created a change in the budget for LHA. The change happening here is specifically for those LHA staff that hit the LHA's general fund budget. So the difference of that was about $3,500. What we also do is, even though we prep the budgets and we have you guys approve, we have to send them off to the investors. And the investors do their own analysis and come back and have questions, or they may have us change stuff. A sense budget, what we were trying to do is get it to a certain debt ratio. And Ascent actually purchased, on the behalf of our request, an ATV to do snow removal. And they thought when they did that they would also see a reduction in the snow removal cost. That wasn't originally budgeted. So what we did was, because they already purchased that and it's going to remain at the property, the maintenance tech's already getting charged through the payroll, that it was decided that it's really only going to be our trucks that are utilized to clean out the parking area. And so we made a negotiation with them to reduce that so we could also get within our debt service ratio that they needed us to get into. Because they were also seeing increases in payroll, increases across the board, because this property realized when you start a tax credit property, you start it back in 2023, and you're giving them amounts that you think it's going to be for payroll, and by the time they actually come into play and come into service, payroll's higher, benefits are higher, because there's just so many changes, and you can estimate as much as we can, but sometimes it's just not enough. So that was a difference of $5,098. So we're just asking an approval to increase our general fund budget. based on the original and revised, similar to what Harold was mentioning, you can see by 2025, and this is for the new commissioners, you can see 2025 and 2026, the items in red. So in 2025, we had to use $903,000 of the general fund money, but in 2026, we did abstain some more reoccurring revenue that's going to happen every year, and it kind of reduced that amount. So that's kind of where he was going. And you'll see the bigger picture next October when we go through the budget cycle again, but that's kind of the gist there. So I think we're going to have some questions.
Kind of ATV do you guys buy, or did they buy?
And do you just need
That I
us
don't
to
know.
approve or to okay the request, the revised? Okay. Do we have any questions? Any other questions? Okay. So can I have a motion to approve this budget modification? So the motion was made by Commissioner Culcuffer. Can I get a second? And seconded by Commissioner McCoy. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Okay, so that carries 5-0 with Commissioners Christ and McCoy absent. And now we're on to, Marcy, sorry. Yeah. It's the alliteration this time. So, okay, yeah. Correction, Marcy. McCoy's here. So now we're at the update, Ascent at Hover Crossing Early Childhood Education Center, provider update.
I will be taking this item.
Okay.
So we started our partnership with Wild Plum in about 2023. Wild Plum is a local provider that provides Head Start childcare, so this is federal funding, that's their niche, for our lowest income families in Longmont. Great, amazing program. They have some really cool wraparound services. So we partnered with them to be the provider at Ascent. They signed a lease with us about when we closed or shortly after, so about mid-2024. And with the intent in mind that our goals and the goals of the funders of the ECE, which include City Council, primarily the Colorado Health Foundation, for $2 million of the $3 million that it took to build the facility, to see the goal being to see expanded childcare slots in our community for income qualified families, trying to hit some of the hardest childcare to find, including focusing on lower age groups. So they were on board with us to go forward with our primary plan, which was CCAP, to help expand those childcare slots. Since that time, CCAP has been not helpful. So CCAP has been frozen. We have known for some time that was going to be a challenge, and we've been working with Wild Plum throughout 2025 to find other solutions. One of our backup solutions that we had been talking about is moving some healthcare slots over to help with providing income qualified care. What we found out later, what that actually meant on the ground is that the existing head care slots at the part of Longmont Church would have to close in order to do that. So that's not a net gain of slots, that's more a just shifting. $3 million new building and shifting. So that's not meeting the intent of the funders or what we really wanted to do there. So we started working with Wild Plum to explore a sliding scale model as a way forward to still get some subsidized care for low-income families, at least for the time being. So we worked with them. They have never implemented a model like that. They were running some models, and really what that turns out to look like is about a $250,000 per year gap in operational funding, even with the subsidized care from the, I'm going to call it market rate tuition, but really it's still more affordable than our average in the community. I'd say it's still quite affordable, but at market rate and non-restricted to income. However, to move forward with that type of model, which would have been brand new for them, they were only comfortable moving forward with a 10-year commitment, which that's $2.5 million to open. So that was a big hill to climb. They did their best seeking out funders. We did our best to support them and making connections and helping with applications, whatever it would take. But really, that was just in the timeline that we had to be able to open, and we have to open by the fall of 2026 to meet our Colorado Health Foundation milestones, or else they could recapture the funds, which the funds are already in the building, so they're not necessarily sitting around waiting.
Yeah.
They came to us in, I believe, the end of October and said, really, this is too hard. This is too risky. It's a model we haven't done. It's we don't want to put ourselves in a position where we're impacting what we already have. It's already struggling with federal funding freezes, and so I said, none of us ever wanted to put you in a position. That's not the point of this, right? Is to put one of our valued child care providers into a position like that. So we accepted their backing out of the Ascent project. As a backup, there was conversations already being had between Wild Plum and our center trying to figure out that sliding scale model, but our center has run a sliding scale model for some time, for years. They have it kind of dialed in, figured out. They just it's less of a, I think, learning curve and less of a risk because they have the process dialed in.
Yeah.
So they were comfortable. The gap is still similar, but they were comfortable moving forward with a year at a time, and comfortable that they could make that funding gap work over time, especially if this is hopefully several years where we're in this type of situation. If CCAP comes back, that opens up doors. If other funding opportunities come back, that opens up doors. But so we, our center is interested. They run the Aspen Center here, not far from here. And we spoke with Colorado Health Foundation about that, and they were in support, and they are in support of our sliding scale model as an alternative to still try and do what we can to serve income qualified care. So at this point in time, we have sent a lease termination document to Wild Plum and Aspen Center and our center. They have been speaking with their board members about interest, and they'll be taking a formal consideration of this idea to their board next week. So before we get to that point, we wanted to present that to our board, ensure we're all on a path forward that you support, and let you know that we are still doing our darndest to get that ECE filled in the best possible way. Another consideration that I would say, because there is still a gap in operations, we are talking to, there was cost savings in construction for the housing partnership, so we are working with our development partners to utilize a portion of that cost savings. They're running that through approvals at this time, through their corporate office, and then also our tax credit investors and banks that are on the project, First Bank and RBC. They also have foundation arms that we are reaching out to help fill this gap, at least for the first 1 to 2 years. And the other consideration is that our center is thinking that is going to be best for the facility if we don't open an infant room right off the bat, which is definitely a disappointment. But in the circumstances, if we're getting anything going that still meets the major intent of what we wanted to do, we may not financially be able to manage infants until a funding source opens up.
Bird in the hand.
Because the infant, it's 4 to 1, is that?
It's 4 to 1, and it's an entire other FTE because of the infant nursery supervisor. And then there's also some challenges because every other age group, they can move them up at designated timelines. But for the infants, they can do it based on developmental timelines. So that means they might have to hold slots open in the toddler 1 room to wait for those kids to be able to enter, which is just lost revenue while they do that. So we told them, we'll talk about that with you all, but really, at this point, if the doors can still be open someday, that is our hope. We can always slide in an infant care room later if the finances make sense.
Okay. Do we have any questions?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So we don't know what the sliding scale is, and so the families that are going to be living within those units will have primary kind of, they'll be able to get that care if need be. They'll have first choice, I should say. They'll be prioritized. Is
So
that correct?
the initial, so this is kind of the next steps in working with our center. When we were working with Wild Plum Center, we were going to first open up that opportunity to do internal marketing with their existing families that they work with, and also with our Ascent residents, because we don't know, what we really don't want to do is focus on too much time on trying to fill with our Ascent residents and leave the building empty and not be able to pay the bills. So it's the very fine balance to make sure we are doing the proper marketing to our residents and other families that are connected with, at the time, Wild Plum. We could still do that if they want to have interest in partnering in that way. Children, youth, and families, to get the word out. And then when we have openings, once both facilities are operational, when we have openings that come up, we will hold them for 2 weeks for an Ascent family to get in before it gets opened up to the general public.
Okay, and then just a couple follow-up questions. So I think my one concern is not knowing what the sliding scale looks like, if it's going to be beneficial to the families that are on that site, which the intent, I think, of the project was so that these families moving into the units would benefit all around. So we can't answer those questions right now, right? But we do need to get someone in there ASAP. That's important.
Right.
So I guess my question is if our center, Aspen Center, is not meeting that need as we foresaw or envisioned it, is this like an annual lease with them? Or talk to me about what that relationship looks like, to where if we had to bring someone in the future, not that we will, but if we had to, could.
Do you recall if our lease is 1 year with automatic renewals?
I believe it was 1 year with automatic renewals. I think it was at least 5 years. I mean, frankly, you're not going to have somebody particularly interested in doing their own operational gamble on a single year of operations, because they're going to have to staff up. They're going to have to build their relationships. And so there's that side. And the other side of it is there is a not insignificant risk of not fulfilling our obligations under the Colorado Health Foundation grant. And the remedy is like pretty draconian. It is $2 million that we just have to find. It was a major issue when we were doing the development work on the center. So we still have to do the lease with whoever comes in, so we can change it around, but it's going to have to be satisfactory to both our partners at the Ascent and the banks and whoever our partner is.
I think part of what creates the uncertainty is we have 1 through 4 bedrooms. Whether or not the people that get the 1 through 4 bedrooms actually have children of the age that go into the child care is a question, because you can't consider that in the lease up. And so that's the hedge that I think everyone's trying to manage, and I think the intent is to do our best to give them access, but not do that at the detriment of this financial liability. So that's always been kind of coming into this. We've always talked about that there was going to have to be an opening outside of the building, just to make sure that we're meeting the financial requirements on this. And I think that's Molly's point, to say we're going to be managing those two things real time with each other, but then once you get in the rhythm of it, as spots open up, then it's easier to say, okay, we're going to hold 2 spots for 2 weeks for the people that live here. It's just this weird startup position that, to the question earlier about feds, we're now fully seeing what the impact is of all of these decisions that are being made at other levels.
I have a follow-up question to what you just said. Would there be a waiting list, and somebody who lives in Ascent, they would jump the line? Or how would that work? Because I know a lot of child care facilities have wait lists. So let's say the Ascent resident comes in and they're 6th in line. If the other 5 are not Ascent residents, would they jump the line?
Yes.
Okay. And then my second question, with us changing providers, would there be any additional build-out costs? Or is the space ready and our center would take it as is?
So the build-out is complete of everything that's affixed to the building. And it was all built with Colorado Shines rating level 5 in mind. Luckily, the Longmont Community Foundation has been very supportive of the project, and they provided a $300,000 grant for startup and FF&E. So, cribs and everything that you would need equipment-wise to open. So that would convey over in this arrangement.
They're willing to transfer that over?
And Wild Plum is like, yes, please help this project still. And so everyone's in support, all parties with that.
Okay. And then you don't need any action from us on this? It's just
No
an
more
update.
direction if you wanted us to go somewhere else with it.
Okay.
Are you good with our approach, or do you want us to do something else?
Considering the number of times that Ascent almost wasn't going to happen, and all the, okay, we got to come together for this meeting, and this partner, or LITEC, or whatever, hiccups that came along the way, we need to go forward with this. So that's, we already now have the commitment. The space has been built, and the consequence for not moving forward, as you had mentioned, it would be pretty severe for the organization.
I have one follow-up
Yes,
question.
go ahead.
So you said no infants. So what is the youngest age?
12 months.
12 months. Okay. That's not too bad.
Initially.
Yeah.
Right, to
Initially,
start, right.
to start.
Yeah.
With the
But still not
whole-
bad.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
12 months squishy because it depends on their development.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
As young as 12 months.
Yeah.
So start feeding those babies some good
Come on, walk. My daughter was walking at 10 months.
Well,
Yeah, and she hasn't stopped at 26.
I do have to say the fact that we had two
get it.
providers that provide community-based care and serving low-income families that we had two to even pick from, and both have been willing to support this and move it.
It's amazing.
We're very lucky in Longmont, I'd say. I don't know if everywhere
We have a
gets that.
supportive community. Okay.
So real quick on this, why this is so difficult at this location is Ascent is not in a qualified census tract. And so if we were to have built this project in a qualified census tract, then the cost of the early child care could have been put in the basis for the tax increment loan. Since it's not, we couldn't do it, but we knew that we wanted to expand childcare in the community as part of our goals. So that's why we had to go in and look at the Colorado Health Foundation. Same project in a qualified census tract looks a lot different.
Yeah.
We can be a lot more flexible.
Yeah, we have a lot more
A lot more
flexibility.
just
flexibility.
an idea, as we're looking at relationships and Wild Plum fell out, when we're looking at infant care and maybe something we can't provide up front, maybe we can create a relationship, I don't know if it's even possible, to where maybe Wild Plum's taking in those infants and then they graduate into Ascent. Still to meet that need and open up space. I'm just thinking in that aspect, and so we would still, it would be like baby in, baby out, right? And keep those babies flowing, right? Until they're of age for preschool and getting into the school district. So just food for thought there.
No, that's a good idea. I think they, they have their own CCAP issues right now, which I think made it worse for this. The timing was bad.
Yes, bless you.
It wasn't just like we were trying to figure this out. They were trying to figure this out and the uncertainty of CCAP.
Yeah.
So it was
and
not,
frozen Head Start money, so just their basic operations already.
It was not. We completely understand where they were.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
Okay.
Well, nice work.
Okay.
Yeah.
So thank you. We're now on to the interim executive director report. What are we doing? Development updates?
Do you have anything more?
For development?
No.
Operations.
Quincy?
Property updates.
Property updates. All right, so I just want to, before I get into this, there is a discrepancy to Fall River and
Hearthstone, in the property update section under the actual occupancy report, it says that Fall River has 3 vacants and Hearthstone has 3 vacants. Those are really 2 vacants as of yesterday, which is correct up in the original LHA occupancy report. So Aspen Meadows neighborhood, we have 1 rentable unit over there. So we're sitting at 96%. The senior property, we're still having a bit of a struggle to fill that with the rents being expensive. Seniors on a fixed income. We're trying to balance that. Kendra has given us the go-ahead to reduce the rents almost $200, and that's still a struggle for a lot of the seniors over there. So we're brainstorming, trying to put together some ideas on how to market that a little bit better. Summer and myself have went, the property manager who's there now, we've went to all of the local organizations around and hand delivered flyers and kind of give them a heads up, asked a bunch of small businesses if we could post on their billboards to maybe see if that might generate something. Still haven't really seen anything on that, so we're still working through that. Like I said, Fall River, there's 2 vacants over there. They found somebody to rent one of the 50% units over there yesterday. Spring Creek is sitting at 1 vacant unit as well. Hearthstone, Jonna found somebody who will be moving in tomorrow actually, so yay for that. The Lodge, we don't have any vacants over at the Lodge. Hearthstone and Lodge are, you guys are familiar with the Hearthstone and Lodge, there are the 202 properties, so everybody over there pays 30% of their income. So not a hard place to fill at all. The suites, we have some PBB units over there that Tracy's team is working to fill as well as Nikki. The issue with the suites is we will get residents who qualify, we'll get to the end of the period to move them in, and what happens is some people get cold feet, they don't want to move in. We were just talking about that today actually, to where we got all the way through to the end. We were going to have somebody else move into the suites. Unfortunately, we found out that they passed away. So situations like that are happening there. Granted, those units are a lot easier to fill once we get qualified applicants who actually want to move in, coming off the street. They're comfortable on the street. So when we ask you to move into a unit, an apartment, and behave, you get some discrepancies there, right? Some people want to follow the rules, some people want to change, some people don't. It's a scary thing, and I understand. Village on Main Street, we do have 6 vacants there. I know we have a move-in on Monday. I told Jackie not to, but she insisted to get the move-in. She's going to come in. It's a holiday, so she'll come in to get that taken care of. And then I also have a phone call with a young lady tomorrow morning for one of the 60% 2-bedrooms there, which is the toughest to fill. So her father's very adamant that he wants that, so we'll get that going. And then Briarwood, there is no vacants over there. We're fully occupied.
Okay.
Awesome. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to finish up, but you got it. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
finish up.
All right. So at the bottom here, I put the affordable vacant unit, the vacancy loss, and as of this month, we are down $109,000 from last year, which is good progress. Of course, we're still working at that. A lot of the units that we do have, a lot of the units here are senior units. A lot of the seniors are on fixed incomes. Like I said, it's difficult for them to try to keep up sometimes, but we're doing a good job of monitoring that. Also, over at the top to the right, I put the move-out summary for the year of 2025, and then I did the month of December. Next month, will I be here next month?
No.
I won't. But I will prepare this next month, and it will have, it'll go month to month again. It'll just be one. I just wanted to compare the year, and then the last month of the year for December as well.
What am I missing? Why?
He's having
Oh, because you're gonna be on paternity leave.
No, not paternity leave. I'm just gonna take 2 weeks off so I can take care of Carissa and the child, and then I'll come back.
Got it.
and
Then you're okay. You're
then
not
I'm
going
good.
anywhere. Like you're coming back.
Yeah, I'll be back. Yeah, I'll be
Okay.
back. I'll be back. I'll be back. Yes,
Don't
I'll be
scare
back.
me.
No, I'll be back.
Before your question, Commissioner copy on, but I just wanted to add some context for some of you who are new. The vacancy loss, what that really speaks to is when units sit vacant for a month, we lose the rent on that, and that can compound very quickly. And during the last 2 years that I've been here, we have struggled to fill units. It's been partly due to reduced marketing efforts or not great marketing efforts, which we've really never had to do, rising costs associated with living in Boulder County, not seeing increase in income or the Social Security income for seniors, seeing inflationary pressure on households, people leaving en masse because it's too expensive to be here. And then we also had a rough 2 years with meth, where we had units that needed to be taken down to the studs, and we didn't have funding to remediate immediately, and so a lot of units sat vacant because of those reasons. We had a big push in 2025 to reduce our vacancy rates. We have seen through great partnerships with 70 Services, a company that Sarah had worked with, and really formed the partnership to see reduced costs for meth cleanup. So testing will always be kind of the same as far as expense, but the remediation piece, we went from using companies that would just tear everything out and throw it away to a company who can actually really successfully just clean it. And so we're seeing a reduction in those costs, and timelines we're down to about 3-week turnaround time from first test to clear test, where it used to be months. And so that is why we have these huge numbers in 2024 and in 2025, and wanting to see that trend continue to reduce. We're always going to have an issue with fixed incomes and seniors, and trying to get senior housing, because even AMI affordable rents are not affordable right now, and we're trending very close to market. So unless the market shifts, which we kind of expect to see, especially with all these new laws coming in, with having to include fees and rent and market those up front, sort of like a truth in lending situation, we're hoping to see a benefit for us as far as our rents, to look more attractive again to people. Because right now they kind of can choose. I can go in the affordable unit and do all this paperwork, or I can go to market and take a gamble on not having my rent increased. So that's kind of the history behind the vacancy loss. And then also, this reason for move out is relatively new. What's interesting is that because we have a high senior population, we do see a lot of vacancy due to death and people leaving to go to assisted living or move in with families or just relocate for costs. So yeah, that's new to our report, but it's really useful information to see kind of what's happening within our portfolio and what trends we're seeing.
Well, did you?
I did.
Oh, no,
go ahead. Because we have the order. Go ahead.
That's fine.
Yes.
The downside of waiting is that I now have 3 questions. The first question is just on the move out reason. Does that impact anything, or is that just a metric for our own? Like, that doesn't impact any formula for funding. Just for our own reference. Yeah. Then on the remediation costs, when we're thinking about and vacancy loss, when we're thinking about that financial equation, but whether, like, I know sometimes it's just truly a cost of available funds, but if we were to think about borrowing money to remediate faster to then get it back on the market, are we factoring in the vacancy loss over a certain period to try to optimize at what point is it worth borrowing money to actually remediate so it can come back on the market sooner?
So I don't think we can borrow money because we'd have to carry the debt, and that would factor into the debt service coverage ratio. Where we could get money is the properties. LHA could just pay for it. I mean, we are the guarantor for the properties that we own. So if there's an inflation in costs, the person who has to pay is the owner, which is LHA. So that we could step in for there. In one situation, we used replacement reserves to rebuild the entire unit for B2 at Aspen Meadows neighborhood.
I don't think we've ever had it where it was a delay because of financials. I just think the delay was the project itself.
B2
was on like 150 grand
yeah.
to rebuild.
It was almost vacant. 2 years.
Was that the suites?
Suites.
Amen. Yeah. I did remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah, was that the concrete?
I think the concrete one was an earlier one, actually.
There was one
Where
of
we
them
had
that we had to
insurance.
grind concrete down like 2 inches.
Wow. So
But for the most part, we've had one that was a financial issue. The others,
Yeah.
it's all sorts of issues.
It seems like we've learned a lot from the last couple of years to the extent that it is possible in the future if we do run into that
Yeah.
issue again. Seeing the amount of vacancy loss, if we aren't factoring that into our financial consideration as like a net present value situation, like
So that's what Kendra's doing, and when she's talking to Quincy, when they say about lease up units and can we drop the rents down
yeah.
to reduce the vacancy loss, even though they're not, they may be not overqualified for the rate that we're putting in.
Oh no, I get that trade-off in that
That
situation. I was
trade-off,
thinking
and I
more
think
on the
the same
cost
thing
up front
happens here.
for remediation. Yeah, okay. And then my last question here, Quincy, this probably goes back to you. Do we have a sense of how the vacancy loss compares across housing authorities? Like, this should be public data, right? Have we ever looked to see like Boulder's housing authority level, like a few in the region, just to see like how does this compare or stack up year over year now that we're at the end of 25 as well, just to see what.
I will research that for you.
Oh, actually, he can research that for him.
I can.
And then he could report out.
I'd be more than happy to. I was wondering if we had looked into that.
I'm a little salty at the end of the
I
day.
think
It would all depend on if, like for LHA, so we do include some of the properties in our portfolio, but not all of them. Because
So
we
you want
are
to make sure you're
not,
comparing apples to apples.
we are not the managing GP. So those are public, but if it's an entity that, like Boulder County or doesn't have an interest in and they don't have to report it on their financials, it may not be public record because these are for-profit entities.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a perfect metric, but it would be interesting to see like on a per capita unit or per unit basis.
Well, we'll have to reach out and do it based on types of units.
Yeah.
So like I said, our problem is primarily the age-restricted units and the volume of age-restricted units. So we would want to actually probably reach out to like housing authorities that
Yeah, so
says,
you're
what is
comparing
your
apples to apples.
vacancy rate on your age-restricted units to see that comparison.
It would be interesting to know after all of the work that this group has put in.
I did ask a former coworker of mine if they were struggling in the BCHA portfolio to fill 50% senior, and they are not. But I don't know what other mechanisms they're using to offset costs, reduce rents. They also might not be charging the same. We charge different AMI levels based on the year and the project when it went into effect.
Right. It certainly isn't an entirely straightforward question.
Right, but we can ask and see what trends they're experiencing.
Other piece of this that we've learned, so Boulder Housing Partners and BCHA, they're in this other program where they're requiring their housing choice voucher recipients to live in their properties. What's it called?
BHP is.
BHP
That's
is
through moving to work.
move to work. And in talking to Susanna, there's something similar that they're doing something different that didn't quite make sense. But Boulder Housing Partners, if you get a voucher, you have to go into a Boulder Housing unit if there's one available. And so
Interesting.
it's a different program that we're waiting to see if that ever opens up for us to get into. That's how they're managing it too.
Something we definitely know is that you mentioned yesterday morning, Lauren, that Ascent, this is not a senior property. It's geared towards families, even though we will let in fair housing rules. We can, exclude non-families. But it's intended to be an opportunity for families where the opportunity is not abundant elsewhere. We have 18 project-based vouchers. Those are the most sought after because they are the most secure for super low. Yes, they're the golden ticket for those super low incomes. So, Lauren, what did we see when we opened up the project-based voucher list for a family property where there'll be kids hopefully everywhere?
The first people in line were seniors from our own properties.
Oh my God.
Because they can't afford the LIHTC rents.
Oh.
So if they qualify under the PBV program.
Wow.
So
I also think our seniors are very well connected into senior services, so they were very aware of what was
Yeah.
coming out.
Yeah.
But
So good job, senior services.
Yeah. Senior services, that's
They need to take it down a notch.
I do
Oh, you know what?
think-
I'm gonna act already.
Nope.
Are you done?
I'm good.
I didn't mean to scare you.
No.
Sorry.
No.
I'm really not that bad.
My question was answered by.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, yes.
All right, so I just can't help but to like see the human capital we have here,
Mm-hmm.
and the kind of some of the issues we're facing and how it can be solved with a lot of that human capital. And we're looking at programs too. Like we're not only looking at like how do we keep these folks housed, but how do we help them to grow, hopefully eventually to a place where they can move out and pay market rate. And like just an example, right? You're having trouble filling vacancies for seniors. Well, maybe there's like a referral program within Longmont Housing Authority where if a senior can refer and bring someone in, they'll get a reduction on their rent, which cuts that overall cost. And so I'm just thinking about programming that could not only benefit a senior to get some money in their pocket or a family, but also allow us to save some money by filling that vacancy. And so if it's partnerships with, I don't know what LHA is doing as far as partnerships in the community, but is it partnerships with Workforce Boulder County? Another great thing that you were talking about was those heat pumps. I just had a conversation with Viva, and she was talking about the heat pump internship program, right? Are there family units where adults can be the maintenance tech at that unit and get a reduction on their rent? So I'm just thinking about that human capital piece and how we can really maximize, and also it brings communities together. When a community is responsible for taking care of their community, then we see better numbers and police calls, connection, and just building that safe environment. And so I'm hearing the issues, I'm seeing the human capital. I'm also seeing like what's happening in the human service field where a lot of organizations are moving toward that family development pathway. And how are we starting to think and frame in that sense at LHA to start making those connections with Workforce Boulder County to, maybe they help with the training piece, or maybe we can get someone in and say, hey, you get this rental for free, but you're going to be the maintenance tech for this. Or maybe at the Ascent properties, we can get someone certified in childcare. So not only are we bringing teachers into our community, which is the need, but they're able to help their other surrounding parents within that same residence take care of the children, get certification, and grow in that economic piece. And so I really think that that's going to be the key moving forward. And I don't know how those partnerships work, and I don't know who's going to be responsible for them, but it's going to save us a whole bunch of money. The people will benefit, and we're probably going to be better off at the end of the day. So I just wanted to put that plug in there.
Are there restrictions with liability?
Yeah.
Okay, I was like,
Yeah.
I just think about the school district realm, and it was like, I love that, and that's kind of how in the past we'd operate. And when I first started teaching, I'm going around and I can't get my kid to school. I was like, I'll be right over, watch my class. Going to pick up kids who had high absence. Do how these things happen, or in order for kids to stay at tutoring, we would just take the kids home, and so it's like building all that human capital. But now it's just like
there's so many restrictions
Yes.
with the LIHTC program, with IRS rules. I mean, if we had a tenant performing maintenance, like you wade into a really risky territory because you are now commingling their housing with their livelihood. They would effectively be an LHA employee. There's so much risk and liability, and the reason why all these rules and guardrails are implemented is because in the past, someone, whether the employee, employer, resident, took advantage of an arrangement. And I can think of a situation where we were looking, not LHA, but someone was looking at an acquisition and absorbing employee of the property management who happened to also live there, and their spouse was the maintenance person, became very uncomfortable because the person was over income because their undocumented spouse who was doing the maintenance, they weren't reporting that income, it was paid under the table. So those situations get really tricky and messy very quickly. I think where we would want to take your idea and start leveraging partnerships are the places that we've already built these partnerships within the city, within the Center of Excellence model with mental health. I know you guys we're trying to work on this new mental health funding that has come in with the county, even though it's only a 3-year commitment and we're not sure what's going to happen with that. In that conversation, we're looking at what other partnerships are in existence that can access that money, where we wouldn't want it because it's a one-time fund. We can't really fund ongoing positions and needs with one-time funding because that's tricky. But looking at new partnerships with groups that already exist and bringing that in, like one of them is like Imagine, working with the IDD community, might be a future potential partnership, expanding our relationship with families, children, youth, and families, which we don't traditionally work with a lot because we didn't have multifamily housing. We have a really robust relationship with senior services, so looking at trying to build up those partnerships even more. Old LHA, previous to the city, did have a lot of those situations where tenants were given a lot of perks, and it was a liability. Like they actually lent out keys to tenants for lockouts. So one tenant had keys to every single unit, which
you're still
well, obviously, like they're not barbarians. Like people will train. Like these are up. These are seniors who've worked their entire careers in industries that we probably will never touch.
It's not an uncertified person to doing the heat.
Right.
It's like
and so I'm just saying, like, yes, there's liability, and that fear shouldn't stop us for pushing further in that arena, in that direction, because there's such a need in the community, especially amongst that community, to gain access to resources and opportunity. And maybe it's not within that apartment complex. Maybe it's separate in another LHA
and maybe
complex.
It's not commingling like rent with that world, but it could be a separate
and we're not
contract.
building the program now. I'm just saying, as we proceed, to think in that aspect, to look for opportunity for these individuals, and especially if it's like subsidies or toward the rent or reduction for the rent. The nice thing about that is it doesn't count toward they won't lose their benefits because they're not getting money. They're just not paying as much rent. And so there's way to do things to incentivize it, to make it work. And again, I have to learn a whole lot about ALHA. There's a lot I don't know. But I know that there's a lot of people, like, seniors who will have those vacancies filled. Like they'll go out and fill them if you give them an opportunity to gain in some way, form or another. So.
Yeah, we have talked about incentive-based, like doing something similar to what you're seeing in market rate, where they give you a month free or first a month free. We've talked about doing that. You can do like referral pieces. Something Kendra mentioned is then the investor has to say yes or no, because we don't have full control of it because the investor's behind this. And so that's kind of what Lauren's getting at is while it's our property, while we're the ownership interest in it, the investor's the real owner behind it. And that's where the approval processes start occurring. And that's kind of one of the beasts of this whole LIHTC world, is that there's always an investor
some entity
behind it that is involved, because that's how you actually can finance it.
But they would rather see the unknown vacancy month over month versus giving a month free or a credit.
Oh, I think that's easy. I think it's when you get into the liability world. When you start getting into the liability world is where they start getting. That's when all these attorneys start getting involved.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And if you think about how long the conversation was just to do employee units.
Tim Post
Yeah.
will.
I can't
Yeah.
believe it took so long for anyone to look over at me in that conversation. The partnership agreement is also going to lay out what we can do with certain units. So, like in terms of the employee units, a lot of times they are really strict about you having a designated employee unit or not allowing that at all.
Yeah.
And so, in terms of just like giving somebody a free unit to do maintenance, that would get really tricky in terms of the
Because
partnership
it's weird, because then you can't separate it. So there is an employee unit at the suites, of which we have an employee in, but the employee who resides in that unit has to serve the suites. They can't be an employee that works at AMN. It has to be an employee at the suite. So that's where he's talking about what's in the partnership agreements. There's a unit at the lodge in Hartstone that we just can't fill. But
We're not allowed to.
We're not allowed to.
we're not allowed to fill it.
We had, so both Hearthstone and Lodge have employee units designated. We had to petition HUD to allow us to rent out the one at the Lodge because our employee resided at the Hearthstone at the time. Now we don't have an employee staying there, but they will not allow us to rent it out.
To anybody else.
To anybody.
And that's the non-rev units?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are managers' units.
Welcome to the world of HUD.
That's
think
generally built into the pro forma though,
Yeah.
so it's not like
It doesn't
it's
count.
not like we're not bleeding from it.
Right.
Okay.
It doesn't get
It's just a
factored in.
unit we can't put into use for people who need it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like what was happening at
Which is strange because Chapel says we have to. The Chapel rules say we have to, but the pro forma doesn't allow it and the partnership doesn't allow it. So it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
What I do think we actually talked about it in our advisory board meeting yesterday because Arlene Zortman brought it up, was the Family Self-Sufficiency Program, which is tied to HUD and vouchers. LHA used to have a similarly structured program called the RISE program. It was locally funded, and the voucher holders participated. A lot of them lived in Aspen Meadows neighborhood at the time, and there was an entire group of people that was their role, was this RISE program. It ended sometime between 2016 and 2019, I don't know when, but that is a program that would look at providing residents the skills and the ability to transition out of needing a voucher and avoid that cliff effect where you get to a point where you have the potential to make more money and take a better job, but you don't, because if you do, you might make $5,000 more a year, but now your expenses went up
Helps
8.
them get ahead of that.
Yeah, so they get to step down. And so when we are ready and when we have the staffing and the partnerships and the ability to pay for a program like that, I would like to do a local program again that mirrors that same process to help transition people out of the program and then
Bring
have
new
new people
families
come in.
that can benefit and not just stay.
And I think that was funded out of the Health and Human Service funding
Interesting.
pool. And so take this hat off, put another hat off as you're in the Health and Human Service funding conversation and where programs are coming in. You know, the council did say, okay, we're going to allocate 45% to the in-house. The council in that conversation could say, we're going to allocate X percentage to provide housing and connect it into a RISE program.
Yeah.
But it's a different source of funding that's getting at the same thing, just in a different way.
In a different way.
And so those are the things, yes, that's where you can start doing that, but then you've got to find the funding source.
Yeah, no, and I do like that self-sufficiency piece. And you know, as I think about moving forward in other projects and moving to the future, when you mentioned IDD, we've had conversations around this. I mean, that is something that I see that is growing. And, you know, the community that I'm connected with, the IDD community, is, you know, we're aging. And, you know, a lot of people in our parent network, you know, they're in their 70s and their kids are in their 30s. And, you know, how are they going to take care of themselves when parents pass on? And so what kinds of systems can we in the community have in place for individuals with disabilities? So, yes. But, okay, let's move on to the public health and safety updates. Yeah, thanks.
All right, so it's my shot. For those of you that are new to the room, I usually go through monthly calls for service at the properties, give you an opportunity to ask any questions about them. Pretty straightforward, and then just give you any updates on either projects I'm involved in or things in the communities that I'm helping with. Our suites is usually the number one holder of calls for service. We had 18 calls, 4 police reports there. As far as our senior communities, basically 1 or 2 calls for service. And our other multifamily had 0.
This is
Oh, wow.
I'm sorry?
monthly.
Monthly,
Okay.
yeah. Every month you'll get an update. So those were our calls. Mostly the suites, they're welfare checks, trespassing, assists.
Is the trespassing in-unit trespassing or property
No,
trespassing?
property trespassing. We have a lot of, there's, for those of you not familiar with Sunset Way, there's a bridge over there behind Hobby Lobby, and there's a ditch. So we have a lot of the in-house traveling behind the Sam's, in the suites, and the Zinnia. So it's kind of like a revolving door there, but that's for the trespassing, that's usually what it is.
It's ironically connected to the urban renewal conversation at Hover that we had, in the sense that that area is an epicenter for the issues that she's talking about. And so that parking lot there, connected to the ditch that moves through to the suites to Sunset, is a problematic area, and most of what's driving that is drugs. And
Not really ironically connected, it is.
It is connected. Well, I'm just saying, it's
Yeah.
like we had this conversation,
Yeah.
but in this venue now, we're linking it directly to those 2 issues, to the point where we've seen people with cameras looking out of the back, seeing when people are congregating, so that then they can go out and do their business, and then it starts percolating outside of the area. And so that's why that was important, because it's connected to this, and now you're seeing just how we're looking at the entire area.
And just so you're aware, between we have a gentleman that is hired with Parks. He goes around picking up shopping carts, so he's down there pretty much weekly. Our park rangers are down there by the bridge. Patrol is out there a lot, and I know our security company calls when they can't move folks on. So the trespassing thing has always kind of just been there. And
So when we say the suites is the highest number,
of calls,
it's of what we own. It is not the highest number of what we manage.
Correct.
The highest number of what we manage is actually Zinnia.
Zinnia, yep.
And it is significantly higher in terms of calls for service and reports.
Correct. So Zinnia last month had 26 calls. And they're usually 10 plus calls more than the suites.
Also mostly trespassing?
No, it runs the gamut there. It gets a little bit more violent. We get assaults, some menacings. Menacing could be with a weapon, usually is with a weapon. Disturbances, fights. So, and then, and some of, because of the proximity, the suites, some of it just ends up, it does affect our residents at the suites, but sometimes they end up getting involved. So it's been interesting.
And Zinnia is single adults, families mixed?
Permanent supportive housing, similar to the suites.
Okay.
Single adults.
Single adults.
Yeah. One day there was a menacing with a gun that Quincy and I ended up out there.
I was there too.
Oh yeah, you were there too.
I went in there looking for my staff to make sure they were okay.
And then, I mean, literally, there's no way to say it other than all hell broke loose. And it was like not related to that incident, it was like all of a sudden, here's another incident where somebody's driving in and then they're trying to deal with them, and then somebody's trying to get in from the Zinnia into the suites.
Oh my
And so you
goodness.
literally had Quincy over here, Lauren over here, me over here, police officers in multiple locations. Because it just, that quick, it got out of control. And I think that's what Sarah's alluding to is that we're a lot of attention right now from all of us.
Wow. Yeah. And the biggest project that I'm assisting with is our meth detector install and development and all the things for Ascent. So it's been, we do have some in city properties in our bathrooms, and myself and Rick have been monitoring those since inception. 5 or 10 meth detectors versus 75 is a little bit different. So working through just some of the quirks and getting them installed as we have move-ins. So
Wow. And those are sitting in units, and
Correct.
it'll alert you.
So it's a alert, a silent alert. It looks it's like a plastic box. It kind of looks like a fire alarm. It's a silent alert where a gas sensor basically takes samples of air as much as you want, and we have it programmed about every hour. We probably are going to tune that back to every 3 for the apartment property. But it's a silent alert. It comes through a website portal where myself, the manager, who's sitting back here, Summer, and Quincy will get those alerts, and we'll be able to monitor the PPM it is called, and I can't remember what that stands for.
Parts per million
Thank you.
concentration.
It's been a long day. Parts per million in the air of meth.
And we have a threshold set for when it's,
That's good.
and then we have a process for which we will kick in.
Great.
And they worked. They had them in my office. We tested them in my office. And all
You
When you
tested
say
it?
when you say it works, what do you mean by it?
I'm sure it doesn't go.
I was like,
So you think about
not
this.
the video.
We started seeing alerts that what was it, about 2:30 every morning it would spike.
Oh.
And it
Okay,
was
yeah,
on
I
a
remember.
consistent
In your office?
in my office.
What were
which
you doing at
means
2:30 in the morning?
I wish I knew.
It's a ghost.
It's a ghost, but what we I think ended up
Places on
thinking
it.
is that somebody was probably smoking, because we have people that camp near or used to camp near
Outside, you're saying they came
that
in
they
from
were
events.
literally smoking outside our office, and it was coming in. When Sarah would come in at times from being out in the field because they're so sensitive, you would see little blips when Sarah was in the office.
Oh, wow.
It picks it up off your clothes.
Wow.
It's just scary to think.
So there's like a threshold.
Yeah,
right?
there's a
60, I think it's
They-
60 parts per
60,
million.
okay.
is when
is
If it's
active
in,
use.
it's active use. Okay,
Yes.
good. Okay.
And the purpose of these is to deter, right, and to prevent
Yeah.
for us to have to spend thousands
Exactly.
of
Yeah.
dollars.
Go to a place.
And
yeah.
hopefully, if we get some really cold weather soon, it just deters them from going outside too.
Yeah.
So maybe it helps prevent the use.
Yeah.
So you're saying we could have one of the detectors in this room right now, and it could go off because whatever is attached to our clothing
Correct.
would trigger it.
And wherever you
Trigger
were.
it wherever you were.
Yeah, and so, I mean, and therefore, this is how we had one that came in and it kept registering high. And so we're talking to the company out of New Zealand, and they basically changed their shipping practices to where they actually vacuum seal it because apparently the amount of meth use in the package distribution industry is so high that it like fried the system before we ever plugged it in.
And tenants
It was
are
all over
notified
the
that
box.
they're there, right?
Yes, they signed
They
an
have to sign an
addendum.
addendum.
Great. Okay.
When it goes off, we then test. So it's not going to be the end of the
Just that.
No.
That's
Yeah,
just
go
the,
ahead.
the
It
starting
starts the
point.
process.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
Sure.
Anything else?
No, that's
Okay,
it.
thank you. Commissioner comments?
I just want to say thank
Yeah.
you to everybody. I know you had a long day at work, and we are new.
Yeah.
The hope is that these meetings actually don't go as long, but we are making sure that we're trying to learn and ask the right questions so that we can be intentional moving forward. So thank you for your patience.
Yes, thank you. And not that I didn't believe the photos when I saw the Ascent project, but I always know that realtors take really good photos of properties, so I did.
That was just
drive
somebody's
by.
cell phone.
Yeah.
I did drive by because seeing is believing, and that project
I live near there, and
is
it's- yeah.
amazing, and
Yeah.
it's something that we should all be proud of. And all the solar panels are amazing, and it just looks really nice. So kudos.
Nice.
The interior is good.
It's got a lot of storage.
So
Yeah.
speaking of, we're working on a tour or
Yay.
ribbon cutting, how,
Yay.
maybe one or the other or both, we're figuring out how that would work with y'all's schedule.
It was just like yesterday when we had the groundbreaking. Okay, well, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Move we adjourn.
Second?
Yeah, he's already running out of the
Second,
time.
yeah. Okay, yeah.
No, Mike, just
All those in
kidding.
favor, say aye.
Yes.
Okay, so we are adjourned.